On a Tuesday, August 25th, this is the Connector Idaho Daily News from Boise State Public Radio. I'm Troy Oppie. Thanks for listening. Here are today's headlines. We have more on the potential impact to Idaho's economy from the escalating trade war between the U.S. and Canada. The orange bag recycling program in the Treasure Valley will come to an end next year. And what the data show about exemptions for childhood vaccines in Idaho. First this morning, the groups battling over the future of abortion rights in Idaho are showing off different fundraising strategies as November's election inches closer. Here's James Dawson with more.
Too Extreme for Idaho, the main group opposing Proposition 1, has come out the door with a bang, raising more than $1.6 million from a few dozen people or groups since July. Only one of those donations has been less than $1,000, with the group's average contribution totaling more than $40,000. That's in stark contrast to Idahoans United for Women and Families, which wrote the ballot initiative. Its average donation is about $500, coming from more than 5,400 people and organizations. Boise State political science professor Jacqueline Kettler says the wide distance between the number of donors isn't representative of who will ultimately show up to vote.
We can't infer that there's no popular support, that the people don't support it, but at the very least, they're not the ones investing on that side at the moment.
Idahoans United has also been fundraising for 2 years, compared to roughly a month and a half for Too Extreme for Idaho. The two groups have nearly the same amount of cash on hand heading into the final months of the campaign. James Dawson, Boise State Public Radio News.
Since 2018, residents in many Ada County communities have been able to bag up hard-to-recycle plastics in unique orange bags and include them in their blue curbside recycling. The program has kept about 2,000 tons of plastic out of the Ada County landfill in that time. But Hefty and its parent company Reynolds, which make these specific orange bags, announced that the program will end next year. There just aren't enough options for what to do with all those bags of collected plastic, the company said. In the Treasure Valley, the bags were initially handed off to a Salt Lake City company, which offered the hope of chemical recycling and reuse. But that technology proved elusive. The company told Reuters in 2019 plastic coming from Idaho was far dirtier than they were told to expect. The company stopped taking the orange bags. Since, the bags have almost all been incinerated to fuel concrete production in the state of Utah. The city of Boise said at the time incineration was not great, but still better than landfilling all that plastic waste. For now, the orange bags will be available until the end of the year, and they can be included in your recycling bin through June of 2027. After that, plastics will just be landfilled. A City of Boise news release announcing the change encouraged residents to continue to use alternative packaging when possible and continue to recycle numbers 1 and 2 plastic jugs and number 5 food tubs in your blue bin. Yesterday's lightning storms in south central and southwest Idaho are suspected of starting multiple new fires. In Owyhee County, the town of Triangle and the surrounding area are again under a Level 3 evacuation order. Silver City is under a Level 2 warning due to the Flint fire, which broke out just northwest of the existing Big Grass Fire boundary yesterday afternoon and quickly grew to 3,500 acres. In south central Idaho, a handful of new fires were reported, some extinguished by accompanying rainfall. Crews attacked others, including the 2,000-acre Wild Horse fire north of Kamama. That's in eastern Lincoln County. Officials predict the new fire will burn into the nearby Shale Butte burn scar. The Mountain View fire, meanwhile, is 50 acres burning in the South Hills, about 15 miles south of Kimberly. President Trump continued threats of additional tariffs on Canadian imports yesterday. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney was quick to answer with tariffs on U.S. exports to Canada, planned to take effect next month. As our George Prentice reports, Idaho's economy would take a hit if the retaliatory tariffs take hold.
Idaho imports approximately $1.2 billion in Canadian goods each year. That according to the Washington Council on International Trade. Ag imports lead the pack, followed by forest products, chemicals, minerals, and transportation equipment.
From the largest companies imaginable, the Simplots and Microns of the world, to the smaller businesses that export to Canada and import from Canada.
This is Boise State professor and economic analyst Ross Burkhart. He says the tariffs, some as high as 50%, would tap the brakes on Idaho's booming construction industry. Burkhart says Idaho depends heavily on soft lumber. and there is not enough American product to replace Canadian plywood.
The U.S. and Canada certainly had a pretty contentious relationship in regard to exporting and importing building materials, especially softwood lumber. This could have a pretty major effect in that sector, especially in Idaho.
If and when Canada hits back, the other side of the budget for Idaho would also be a bit of a mess, as the gem state exports even more than it imports. About $1.8 billion last year, representing 39% of all Idaho global exports. And Prime Minister Carney is promising those retaliatory tariffs after Labor Day. George Prentice, Boise State Public Radio News.
Data from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention show the vaccination rate of kindergartners across the U.S. fell last year for the fourth straight year. Vaccination rates for measles, mumps, and rubella, the combined vaccine known as MMR, fell to 92.4% in 2025. That's below the 95% threshold experts say is needed for true community immunity. This has been the worst year for measles infections in the U.S. since 1991. In Idaho, data show nearly 1 out of every 5 kindergarten students last year had an exemption for 1 or more vaccinations. That's more than 4 times the national exemption rate. The Idaho Immunization Coalition points to ongoing revisions of federal vaccination guidelines as confusing for parents and helping to drive down vaccination rates. The advocacy group says low vaccination rates can lead to the spread of preventable diseases in Idaho schools. 2 candidates for 1 seat on the Boise School District Board of Trustees and 1 incumbent running unopposed will appear tonight in a candidate forum at Boise High School put on by Babe Vote. Opposing candidates Kurt Naylor and Andy Hawes will appear. Alejandro Necochea, who is running unopposed, will participate as well. Unopposed incumbent Krista Hassler will not attend. Journalist Kevin Richert of Idaho Ed News will moderate tonight. The forum begins at 6:30. It's at Boise High School. The Boise School District Board of Trustee election is coming up September 1st. The district is grandfathered into the right to run its own election separate from traditional local election dates. The unemployment rate in Idaho fell slightly last month. The state's Department of Labor reports Idaho's labor force shrank faster than the total number of employed people in July by about 500. That sent the overall unemployment rate from 3.7% down to 3.6%. Among metro areas, Lewiston experienced an employment drop of 0.7 of a point in July. Idaho Falls fell 0.2 of a point. Employment in Coeur d'Alene and Boise rose slightly. Twin Falls and Pocatello were flat. The statewide 3.6% unemployment rate is the same as it was a year ago. And that's your connector for this Tuesday. Be sure to stay up to date with us by following us on social media and using our free app for your smartphone. You can also visit our website. When you do, check out our community calendar. It's a great way to stay up to date with what's going on around your community, whether you're in the Treasure Valley or beyond. That's at boisestatepublicradio.org. I'm Troy Oppie. Be back with you again tomorrow. Make it a great day.